Okay, so graphing in standard form, you have two options. The first option would be to factor your expression. If I took my equation x squared minus 4x minus 5, that factors to x plus 1 times x minus 5. After that, you would solve for the x-intercepts. So if each of these needs to equal 0, I do x plus 1 equals 0. So solving, I would get negative 1 and positive 5. And then you would plot each of those and find the middle between those two numbers. So the exact middle between negative 1 and positive 5 is positive 2, which means my axis of symmetry equals positive 2. My second option is to use the formula x is equal to negative b over 2a. So when I look at this equation up here, what is my a value? Because I'm going to need that for my denominator. So looking over here, your a is in front of your x squared, so what's the a value? 1, very good. And the b value is in front of the second term, or in front of the x, so what's your b value here? Negative 4. It's important to write down the negative 4 because we're going to plug in a negative b, which just means the opposite of b. So when I plug this in, you're going to do negative, plug in your 4, so that's a negative 4 over 2 times a, and a was 1. So when I simplify this, negative 4, what is a negative 4? Positive 4. So it's like the opposite of negative 4. And then 2 times 1 is 2. So your axis of symmetry is x equals 2. Remember when we found each of our x-intercepts and then found the middle between those? Our x value was still equal to 2. So I'm showing you right now that you could factor this and find the middle, or you could use this formula and you would get the same answer. In both cases, I got x equals 2. Yes?
Is b always going to be a negative?
B is not always going to be a negative, but this formula will always be negative b over 2a. Okay? So if this was a positive, then I would get a negative in my numerator once I simplified. Okay? All right. Once you find the axis of symmetry, you can go ahead and plot it on your graph. So I'm going to use a highlighter to show my axis of symmetry. If you're using pencil, you want to do a dashed line instead of a solid line. Otherwise, you can use a highlighter from the front. And now I want to find my vertex. Does anyone remember how to find a vertex once you have an axis of symmetry? Of the vertex? No. So some people did that on their test. They put the y value of negative 5. Negative 5 right here. Can someone tell me what that does stand for? The y-intercept. So when you have y equals x squared minus 4x minus 5, this value is your y-intercept, which means the answer I write for a y-intercept is what point? 0, negative 5. So for a y-intercept, you plug in 0 for x, and then you would get that last number, which will give you negative 5. And that's where that point comes from. We're going to end up plotting that as well. So you can also put that on there. But that does not give us our vertex. How do we find our vertex? Good. We know that the axis of symmetry will have the vertex on it. So we use that too as the x value of our vertex. In order to find the y value, we are going to plug that in every time we see an x. So that will be 2 squared minus 4 times 2 minus 5. What is 2 squared? Good. And 4 times 2? 8 and minus 5. So 4 minus 8 is negative 4, and negative 4 minus 5 is negative 9. So that negative 9 is the y value of my vertex. And we're going to plot to negative 9. So I need to make more values here. That's 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, and I need at least 3 points when you graph this. 3 or 4 is what I'm looking for. You can use a couple different things. To find your point directly next to here, we can use our a value. What's my a value of this equation? 1. So when I go on 1 point right or left, it will just be 1 point above. Or you can use your y-intercept. How far away from the axis of symmetry is this y-intercept? 2. So if I went 1, 2 to get to my axis of symmetry, I go 1, 2 in the opposite direction to also plot a point. And that is fine as well. Do I have at least 3 points? Yes. So if you give me those 3, that's fine. If you want to give me one directly left, you would go up 1. One directly right, you would go up 1, because this is a positive 1. So that tells me how high I'm going on the right and the left. So I go up 1, up 1. Questions? You only need to give me 3 points. If it asks for your y-intercept, that has to be one of them. And then we can go ahead and graph it. Some of you on your test did not actually graph the function. Please make sure you are graphing it when it asks you to do so. Okay, so sketch it in. Are we ready to move on? Okay. What should I find first in order to graph this function? You can find the y-intercept first. So I'm going to end up putting it last just because that's the last thing we did here. But yeah, you could find the y-intercept first. What is my y-intercept? Negative 2. So I'm going to graph 1, 2, negative 2. Which means that point is 0, negative 2. So you can make that your first move or your last move. Doesn't matter to me. In order to do any of the rest, you now only have one option. What do I find? The axis of symmetry. So I'm going to put AOS for axis of symmetry. Remember, you could have factored the first one that we did. But this equation is not factorable. Okay, just like the one we practiced on the opener. So whenever you have one that's not factorable, we're going to use x equals negative b over 2a for your axis of symmetry. If it is factorable, you can still use negative b over 2a. You don't have to use that. All right, so what are my a and b values? A is negative 1. That comes from right here. What was B? 4. So we get negative 4 over 2 times negative 1. So negative 4 divided by negative 2 is 2. 2 again. So I can plot that. I'm going to go 1, 2 on the x-axis and draw in my axis of symmetry. You can use a highlighter or a dashed line. After you find your axis of symmetry, what's the next point we can find? Vertex. Araceli, what is the x value of my vertex? Not negative 2. How did you get the 2? The same as what? What does this stand for? Axis of symmetry. So that's going to be the same. We're going to use that value for your vertex. Jackson, how do I find my y value of my vertex? Plug in what? Plug in the 2 for every x that I see up here. So I have a negative, open parentheses, 2 squared plus 4 times 2 minus 2. McKelly, help me simplify this using your order of operations, meaning PEMDAS. What do I do first? Okay. Give me just a second. Okay. Parentheses, there's nothing inside the simplify. Exponents, 2 squared is 4, so I get negative 4. 4 times 2 is 8, minus 2. So that's going to give me 4 minus 2, which is 2. So my vertex is over 2, up 2. You can probably start to see which direction that this is going to open, but you already know because of your a value. If I have a negative a value, which way do we open? Down. Negative means we open down. This will be a maximum. My third point you can get from using your a value. If I go to the next point over, I should be going down 1. So you can get these 2 points. Or you can get the other side of the y-intercept. So how far away are we from the axis of symmetry? 2, so I go 2 to the right. And you graph in that function. Thank you. Questions about that example? All right, one more together, and then you can do the back side on your own. Tatum, what should I start with? Axis of symmetry. Awesome. And remember, you could start with the y-intercept like we did on the last one. Doesn't matter, but we're going to start with the axis of symmetry. Tatum, what are my a and b values that I need to plug in? Very good. A is negative 2, b is 8, so this is going to give me negative 8 over 2 times negative 2. All right, when I simplify that, what do I get? 2. Okay, I promise your axis of symmetry is not going to be 2 every single time. It just happened to work out that way for these examples. So, we're going to plot that. Oops, kind of crooked. Okay, what should I do to find my vertex? Plug in the x value. So 2 is going to be the x value of my vertex. And then I'm going to use this equation. Ooh. -2, 2 squared, 8 times 2, plus 9. So y is going to be equal to that. Exponents first. What is 2 squared? 4. Then we multiply. What is -2 times 4?
-8.
And 8 times 2?
16.
Good. Can anyone tell me what you get when you add all those together? Say that again. 17. Thank you. Yeah, because you get 8 plus 9, which is 17.
Oh.
So 217, which means I'm counting by 2s this time. Make sure you mark it if you're counting by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Right above that. Or you can just label your point. Okay, and then I also want to find my y-intercept. Lillian, what's my y-intercept here? Very good. 0, 9. So it comes from the C value. So if you want to write A, B, and C when you're going through, you can. And then 0, positive 9 is 2, 4, 6, 8. Right in between those two. And if that's at positive 9, I can go 2 to the right to get to the axis of symmetry, 2 more to the right to get another point. And that's it. Questions on any of these?